Now we're getting down to it. Steve, you are the official representative today of the entire Hearst family.
That would be 63 lineal descendants, I believe.
Okay, you are William Randolph Hearst great-grandson.
That is correct.
And you spend a lot of time here at the ranch as well.
My whole life, I've spent time here, as many other family members have. Most of us have.
All right, we've spent a lot of time here this morning. We've traveled through about 78,000 acres of the 80,000.
Well, you've been busy.
We've seen a lot of beautiful countryside, a lot of beautiful land. This right over here is the first real structure we have seen so far, and this ties directly into the story of the Hearst Ranch.
Yes, originally the ranch was purchased in 1865 by W.R. William Randolph Hearst's father, George Hearst. And that was 1865, and 13 years later he built this house in 1878.
Now wait a minute, did William Randolph Hearst's father, George, buy this land with the purpose of ranching, of having a ranch here?
That yes, he had a ranch here. He raised horses, he raised cattle, and also he controlled all the commerce coming into San Simeon Bay, which was a huge port. There was lots of people just floating up shore, so he bought the beach, put in a pier, the warehouses.
Wow.
And if you brought in wares to this part of town, you paid George Hearst his duty.
And I gotta tell you, there must have been nothing up in this part of California back then.
Most of all, Chumash Indians.
It was isolated up here.
Yes, it was.
So to build a house like this back in
1878.
Why did he build this? Was this was his home away from...
Well, I think he built it with the intention of spending some time here. You know, there are mixed stories as to whether he spent a lot of time here. He would come and go because of his mining interest elsewhere in the country. He moved around quite a bit, and as you know, his wife Phoebe Apperson Hearst and her only son W.R. were all over the world. He's being educated in art and artifacts.
And George Hearst later became a senator from California.
Yes, he did. I believe, well, he served 2 years of a term of someone who had passed away in office, appointed by the governor, and then was elected to the Senate and died 2 years into his term in 1891.
So today, this is kind of known as the Senator's House.
That's how we refer to it, the Senator's House.
And did William Randolph Hearst ever live here?
Well, I don't know. You know, W.R. didn't really have a residence per se until just before his death, because he had so many residences. He didn't stay anywhere for very long. He did stay here while constructing the first guest house, the guest cottage, the A house at the castle. And as soon as that was completed, then he spent his time here at the ranch in that house.
At the castle.
Correct.
But while the first structure of the castle was being built, William Randolph Hearst, or W.R. as everybody here calls him, lived right here in his dad's house.
Yes, he stayed here.
Now this is a beautiful structure today. It's historic, it's the original thing. How is it used today?
Well, most of course, the ranch is all private, so the houses that we have available here for guests are for family guests and for corporate events and corporate guests.
So this is a guest house?
Yes, it is.
From the Senator's House, built in 1878, we've now moved just a few yards, actually, down the road to this beautiful structure here. And this gets into the more modern architecture of the 1930s. This was built and designed by Julia Morgan, who also designed Hearst Castle. What was this designed to be?
This was actually designed to be, it was first called the Workmen's Quarters. So some of the people that worked at the castle stayed here, and then from there, when the ranch was fully operational and the castle was completed, it became the cowboy dormitory, and over the years that has just morphed into the bunkhouse.
Now this does not look like your average bunkhouse. This is a beautiful, this could be someone's home.
Absolutely. I don't think anything around here, most of the structures and certainly the ranch, could be referred to as average.
Yeah. And Julia Morgan built this in her style, this
kind of Mediterranean, you know, mission era architecture. And we have, I think, 11 Julia Morgan structures on the property, and all of them, they have the same kind of exterior qualities, yet all of them are very different in terms of their own personalities.
So this is where the cowboys stayed.
Yes.
In the 30s and the 40s.
That's correct.
Do you think they must have loved this? I mean, this was luxury.
Well, it's a long way from the tents that some of the workmen were staying in at the castle, yes.
And you stayed here.
I still stay here. I've stayed here since the early 70s. I've stayed here as soon as I got a driver's license in Los Angeles. I had a Corvair, and up and down the highway I went. I was here as many weekends out of the month as I could be here. But when I come down here, and I'm down here quite a bit, I stay right there on the second floor. That's
right
my
here.
room. That's my
Why
room,
do you stay here instead of in one of the fancy places?
Well, I just got accustomed to this this sort of living, and it's just perfectly comfortable. It's a beautiful place, and it reminds me that I'm getting older. It reminds me of youth.
Okay, we're getting the $5 tour inside the old bunkhouse.
Hats.
So when this was a functioning bunkhouse, this would have been filled with cowboy hats,
Yeah,
right here.
they never had a problem finding their own, though.
Okay, now what are we going to go see
Here's
first?
the main dining room.
Oh, wow. This has a great old feel to it. What was the deal? This is where, I mean, obviously, where they would come to eat.
Sure.
And what's the deal with the saddles? Are they just for show, or
Well,
how do they play into the history?
Now they are just for show, but Phoebe Apperson, Hearst, W.R.'s mother, had a significant collection of these saddles. And over the years, they were moved, after she passed away, my understanding is they moved them to the castle. And then years later, the remainder of them, after some auctions, I think some were sold off in the 60s. These remained, and we just had them all restored as a
nice addition to the room. Yeah, they're beautiful. And you know, you kind of get the feel of what it would have been like to be in here with 2 tables full of hungry cowboys.
It got a little bit noisy, I'm sure.
And you ate here as well as a boy.
And still do today.
Oh, of course, you still do today.
Correct.
Boy, if these walls could talk, you
Yeah.
might be getting in some trouble right
Hey,
now.
what happens on the ranch stays on the ranch.
From the dining room into the
Kitchen.
kitchen. Why are you bringing us into the kitchen?
Well, I thought you'd like to see who's cooking your lunch.
Yeah, but you wanted us to see what you're cooking, what our lunch is being cooked on.
Well, our lunch is being cooked on a more modern stove, but this is one of the original stoves that was in the bunkhouse, way back. And it was a wood stove that was modified to use gas.
Look at this. This is a piece of history
Yeah.
in itself. And this was a big kitchen.
This was capable of feeding a lot of people. I mean, we've served 150 people out on the lawn right out of here and off the barbecue. Sure.
And it's a functioning kitchen here. Okay, here's what our lunch, we're going to be eating lunch here later on today. You got modern stoves.
Well,
these
yeah,
days.
they're modern, but they've been here for 20 years or so.
What does modern mean on the Hearst Ranch?
That's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I don't know what is modern and what is old, but all of it is part of the current and history of the ranch.
Yeah, because it all just kind of evolves. Nothing happens quickly here, does it?
Well, they say it doesn't take them all day to do a day's work, but so a lot of things do happen quickly.
Yeah, but I'm just looking, you got the newer stoves, but you got the old windows
Oh,
there.
sure, yeah.
And the sense of place in this room, and I love this, it doesn't get any better.
Hey, it still works. At least the fan.
Okay, now we have come outside this beautiful walkway that takes us down. I assume that these doors were the rooms to the bunkhouse, to the individual room.
That's correct.
Can we go in?
Sure.
Okay. Boy, they're not very big.
Well, they're twice as big as they used to be.
So wait a minute, this used to be one room,
That is correct.
and
And we knocked a hole in the wall here.
in the
This
70s,
This used to be a separate room.
and made one
Made one suite out of it.
And your family still stays here today.
This is my son's favorite room, as a matter of fact. He never travels with fewer than 2 friends.
So he's got
he's got 3 beds.
3 beds in here,
Right.
and boy, this is amazing. So this was a cowboy room here.
Mm-hmm.
This was a cowboy room in there.
That's correct.
And what you did in the 70s was just break through each one of these walls and take it from 12 down to 6.
That's correct.
Well, it's bigger, but it's still not real big.
Well, and all of these rooms still share the communal bath, the showers and everything else out there that's about 20 or so paces away from here.
Well, you certainly wouldn't want a bath in your room.
No, why
That's
would you
not
want
the cowboy way.
Okay, well, it sure wasn't then. Huell, we've saved the best for last, my favorite room in the house.
Oh boy, look at this. This is huge. What was this room? What is this room?
This room has been and remains the game room.
The game room. So they designed in the bunkhouse a game room for the workers, for the cowboys.
A recreation room. Play is very important to everybody, and card games and pool. And when I was a kid, there was a billiard table over here that we've now got in the warehouse.
You played pool over here?
I did my best, Huell.
So you came here a lot as a kid as well.
Oh yeah, whenever we were staying at the bunkhouse, everybody gathers here every evening, and we knock those pool balls around. Whether we win or lose, we have a good time.
Now, wasn't that a little unusual to have a bunkhouse with a recreation room like this in it?
Well, I've been to a few bunkhouses in my time, and I've not seen one quite as elaborate as this, but play's important on other ranches as well. But this, again, nothing was done ever halfway around here, and it was done right.
I love the architecture of the room. It has that Julia Morgan touch.
Yes, it certainly does.
Now, is this, you wouldn't remodel this in the sense of changing any of the bones
No,
of this?
as a matter of fact, I think one of the things that we committed to very early on in this family, and I, of course, recommitted to it when I came from newspapers in '98, was we are in the asset preservation and restoration business. So that everything we do, we put it back the way it was, or we refurbish it the way it stands. It means a lot to us to have it as much like it was then today.
And see, I got to give your family credit for that, because this isn't on the public radar.
No.
You're not doing this for the public. You're doing this just for the family.
That is correct, and we're very proud of it.
Wow, it's absolutely beautiful. Boy, if this, wait a minute, what's the story? There's got to be a story.
Elk. These sheds are all around the property. Every year the elk lose their antlers, and they were mounted sometime in the past. I don't know, they've been hanging there as long as I've been alive, so I can't tell you when.
See, you take something like this for granted. I come in and see it for the first time, and it gets me excited.
Well, I do take it for granted because it's been there a long time, but certainly it's beautiful.
And wait a minute, we're still looking for zebra.
Zebras, they don't behave very well. They go pretty much where they want, so we'll see if we can get there.
Zebras are historic to William Randolph Hearst's time when he had them roaming this property.
That is correct, and we still have, I think we have 40, right around 40 of them.
Why was he so into these exotic animals out on the ranch?
Well, I don't know. Again, he didn't do anything halfway, and he wanted some exotic animals, so he ended up with the largest private zoo in the world. So it was pretty much his mantra to be first. So he had lions and polar bears and ostriches and giraffes and about everything else. But zebras have remained part of the fabric of what the tourists see, and also what we bump into in the hills when we're out there having a good time.